Good morning. Happy Monday. I hope everybody's doing great this morning. I know that you have a busy week and I as well, but I want to start off Mindset Monday for thanking you for joining me at 8 a.m. on a Monday. So I wanted to talk to you guys about some really cool things happening this week. And a lot of them are stemming from our topic today, which is emotions. So before I get into that, I wanted to introduce myself. If this is the first time you've joined me for Mindset Monday, my name is Drew Demery. I am a business strategy coach. So basically what that means is that I help business owners really take their full potential to the highest level. And one of the things we found is the mindset is something that's really sometimes holding us back. And I always say, it's 90% mindset, 10% skill. So regardless of the industry that you're in, it's a lot about mindset. So let's talk about emotion for a little bit for the next few minutes. A lot of us have all kinds of ranges of emotions. And in fact, Berkeley tells us that there's actually 27 distinct categories in emotions. And I don't know about you, but I feel like some days I have more than 27 emotions in one day, let alone that there's only 27 emotions. So I found that was interesting that Berkeley only found 27 distinct emotions. But I'll tell you, as a coach, one of the things, or one of the groups of people that I coach the most is real estate agents. And I will tell you, a lot of the agents that I coach, one of the things that I see and hear is that once they get into real estate, they go, wow, real estate is a highly emotional transaction business, and was not expecting that. And I can definitely say for the years that I was in real estate that it definitely is an emotional roller coaster, whether you're working with the buyer or the seller. Hi, Beth. Good morning. So I wanted to kind of bring that up because my wife, Kimberly, is in real estate. She's selling houses just like many of my clients. And she said the other day, she's like, wow, so many agents on the other side of the transaction are really emotionally charged or attached to the outcome of this, which is making it frustrating. Good morning, Amanda. So there's a lot of emotion in a lot of things we do. And if you aren't a real estate agent and maybe you're watching this and it's coming from a place, maybe your family or your family members are emotional, or maybe people at your job are emotional. And I want to talk about what the mindset is around that, because it's such a challenge to have a task list of tons of things that you need to do and then have the emotions brought into that. So I want to just talk about a couple of reasons why that's like that, and then maybe some things we can do to kind of overcome it or change our mindset. So the first thing is that unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, your brain is controlling all of those emotions. And we have a limbic system on the back of our brain, at the base of our brain. And what that is telling us, and believe me, I don't know the technical word, I looked that up. But what that is telling us is that it's giving us emotions. It's either flight or fight. So it's basically a human instinct. I would really go back to like caveman days, where you're literally, it's like survival of the fittest kind of concept. So fight is the danger. So it's going to talk to you and it's going to think about the emotions about, am I scared? Am I nervous? Do I need to protect myself or my family? The flight aspect is the happy things that we go through, the emotions, the passion, the excitement, things like that. So know already at the beginning of your day that you already have a fight or flight mode inside your brain. And a lot of those emotions, you just have to recognize that, right? Thanks, Ryan. I hope you enjoy the topic. So I want to talk about people really are really not as great at recognizing their own emotions, and we sure as heck are not great at recognizing other emotions from other people. And unfortunately, that takes us down a path of misunderstandings and missteps and maybe bad choices. And then we are emotionally charged, and then it just gets out of control. And I always think to myself, like, what if I could just get basically like an emotional traffic light in front of my forehead? So if I knew I was about to talk to somebody and he was in a bad mood, or if I was talking to somebody and she was just had a rough day already, I would know that, right? And unfortunately, we as humans don't have that ability to kind of predict that. Of course, we can look at people's body language and see and the tonality of what they say, but ultimately we have to react to the emotion that they're projecting onto us, and that's the hardest thing. So I wanted to talk about some of the reasons why emotion is so misinterpreted when you're interacting with any person, whether it's another business partner, whether it's your spouse or your partner, anything like that. And many of you may have heard of a personality profile system called DISC, D-I-S-C. And I speak a lot about it, and I'm not a big person of labels, but I do think it really shows us the mindset, or at least where the perspective of the person's emotion is coming from. So I'm going to go through that just for a couple minutes so you kind of have an understanding of it. When I first discovered DISC, I actually went to TonyRobbins.com. There's actually a free DISC assessment that he provides on the bottom of his website. So maybe check that out. I haven't been there in a few months, so I don't know if it's still there, but TonyRobbins.com does do a DISC, and you can Google other DISC profiles. Sometimes you pay for them, sometimes you don't. But what it does is it's going to show you how you react, what your emotions are, and also how you interpret other people's emotions. So the first one, the D, is the dominance. So this behavior is definitely more of a bottom line person. One of the things, though, and from an emotional standpoint, this person can be very blunt, kind of gets to the point. So that can take you back because you feel the emotion of them. Maybe they don't necessarily always care. And that's not necessarily true. They're just a very direct and very driven person. So again, emotions, you need to kind of know that personality and how to interact with that. The I is the influence. These people are very enthusiastic. They're optimistic. They don't like to be ignored. They like to be kind of friends with everybody. They're the talkers. They're the ones that talk a lot. So if you're going to stifle the influencer, he or she's going to get really grumpy with you. They also tend to have more emotion because they're very passionate about what they do and what they don't do. So again, knowing some of the emotions. The S is the steadiness. So this person, I always actually characterize it more of a systematic person. So step 2, step 3. So you don't want to mess up their flow because they don't like to be rushed. They're very calm. They very supportive. But again, if you see a different emotion based on how they're reacting, you haven't explained things well enough, or you're maybe going too fast. So again, all those are emotion-based habits, right? Conscientiousness is the last one, or I always say the cautious ones. These are very independent, but they're objective reasoning. It's either a black or white. They're very, very distinct on things. And they really do fear being wrong. So that emotion of when they don't want to feel stupid, they don't want to feel like they're ignorant, they want to really lead with confidence. So I want you to think about the DISC when you're going into interaction with people, because it's a huge factor in how we interact as coworkers, or even like my agents when they're interacting with buyers and sellers. And the tricky thing with an agent is that sometimes the wife is a different profile and the husband is a different profile. And so you're kind of feeling like you're schizophrenic, right? Because you have to adapt to both emotional levels. So one person might be, hey, I want to get my house sold for $300,000, and the other person is emotionally attached because they just raised their 3 children here, and it's hard for them to detach from the house. So it's kind of an interesting kind of paradox when you look at the emotions. I always tell my clients, keep your emotion between the lines, because one of the things is that if you can really learn to master your own emotions, you are in control of your life. And if I can say that again, learn to master your emotions. So I'll tell you, full transparency, earlier in my life, I was definitely an emotional wreck. I would be very emotional. I would get hurt. My feelings hurt a lot. I would retaliate against people, not because they did something wrong, but I felt that they did something wrong, right? And maybe it's a maturity thing, but I really do think it's shifting my mindset as how I'm going to react to them makes all the difference. I can't change what they've done to me, but I can change or adapt to the emotion that I bring about it. So I definitely challenge you guys to look at how your emotions are affecting things and keep them between the lines. Another thing I want to talk about, is really important in my opinion, is there's 2 really concepts of how people internal and channel emotion. The first one I always think about is logic makes you think, and emotion makes you act. And actually, I was talking to a client the other day, and she was telling one of her potential customers, this is the reason why you should list your house with me. It's 26% low inventory, all these things. And then I asked her, I said, is this person thinking, is a logical thinker or an emotional thinker? And she's like, I don't really understand what you mean. And I said, when you were talking to the person, did they use feeling words? Did they use, I feel like, or I'm going to miss this house because the memories, right? And she said, yeah, they're definitely more of an emotional person. So when you're having a conversation with them and it's just 1 + 1 = 2, they're not connected with you because they're not thinking logically. They're thinking more in emotion. And in fact, that's how many of us, even if we want to kid ourselves, that's how we make really big decisions, right? We look at the car, we fall in love with it. That's why they put you in the car, right? They don't talk about numbers and the monthly payment and what the interest rate is. They put you in the car so you can feel the leather seats. They want you to feel the all the bells and whistles in the car, because they know if once you're emotionally attached to the vehicle, you're more likely to buy it regardless of the payment, right? Because the logic makes you think, but the emotion makes you act. And if you really think about a lot of the big life decisions that you've made for yourself, a lot of it in most cases is based on your emotion. And so we've got to realize that as we're going forward, communicating with each other and your clients. It's just something that as a coach, I see it all the time, where I see an agent that's highly skilled and they're hitting this ceiling and we can't quite get them above there. And really when it peels the onion back, it's because of their emotional intelligence. And I'm not saying they're not intelligent person, it's their emotional intelligence. There's actually a book called Emotional Intelligence. I highly recommend you buying that book. And basically what it does is walks you through that there's a difference between having a PhD or a master's degree in whatever your education is, but there's a different level of interpreting emotions. Some people, and me included, don't even see the emotions coming at us. So when I'm interacting with a person, sometimes I don't even see the emotion that they're projecting. And unfortunately, because I can't feel that or absorb that information, I'm not really identifying or having a conversation about their emotion. And so I can just go back to many conversations when I was growing up as a child, or even early part of my relationship with Kim, is that I was hearing what she was saying or hearing what one of my family members was saying, but I wasn't digesting and I wasn't really honestly caring about it. It's because I wasn't emotionally intelligent enough to be able to say, okay, he is feeling this way or she's feeling this way. What made them feel that way? Instead, I was just attacking them right back. You know, you say something negative to me, I'm going to say something negative back to you. So be careful about that, guys. I can speak to this because I've done this, is that when you go aggressive with them and they're aggressive back with you, no one's winning here. No one's winning at all. So just, again, learn to kind of master that emotions. Emotion is energy in motion. Right? So emotion is energy. So everything's energy, right? So this drink is energy. This book is energy. Everything you do and feel and touch is energy in the universe, right? So we've got to make sure that our emotions are in check, because it will derail a lot of the goals and the progress that we make every single day. And I'm not saying you're going to be perfect. Again, Mindset Monday is about changing and shifting and your focus on what to be a growth mindset versus a scarcity mindset, right? And we know that we want to be in a growth mindset, and emotion, once we get those in check, that allows more growth. In fact, I was reading an article the other day that said, let's just talk just a classroom. So a classroom, my daughter's in middle school, so she's in middle school math class. And if she's feeling negative and has a lot of emotions that are not positive, she is less likely to absorb the information. Your brain is so smart that basically what it's saying is that if I have negative emotions, I turn it off like a light switch, and I'm not growing, and I'm not learning more. So can you imagine how many meetings you've been to, or how many times you've talked to your spouse partner and you're just not mentally there, and you're just like, yeah, not having it today. And then you go and you do it again, and I know it happens to you because it happens to me. My wife's like, I told you 3 weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't listening, right? I wasn't emotionally connected to what she was saying. And that's shame on me, right? Because what we're trying to learn and we're trying to grow in our mindset is how we control our emotions. And if it's a negative emotion, we've already turned off the light switch and we're not even looking at what we could do to change or create positive outcome for the conversation. And that's just unfortunate as a society and as a person, and that's struggle. So the last thing I want to talk about is Tony Robbins talks about emotions is more like an action signal. If you've watched anything that he ever watched, he talks about these action signals all the time. I want you to realize that we're not going to be perfect people, and we're going to have negative emotions, right? So you can think your first thought, because that can be negative, but you don't have to always say it. But what he was saying about an action signals is recognize your negative patterns, recognize your negative emotions, right? And I think I talked a few weeks back on Mindset Monday. There's over 2,600 negative words that we use in our vocabulary, which is crazy, out of basically 3,000 words that we average use. So 76% of our vocabulary is negative anyway, so no wonder we have so many emotions around it, right? But one of the things he was telling us is that we've got to recognize these emotions that we're going through. So if you have a breakdown, it's right on the other side of a breakthrough. So we know that if you had a frustrating day and you said some negative things and you're emotionally charged, once you get through that, we need to kind of identify that and see if there's a pattern. And like we talked about in past Mindset Mondays, your life always has a pattern, whether it's a date, certain things happen, whether it's a pattern of habits. So this emotion created this result. It's all a chain reaction, right? So make sure you're looking at your emotional actions signals. And if they're positive, look at that. Okay, I had some positive emotions, and this is the positive results I got. This is the negative emotions that I had, and this is what happening. I'll tell you, as you look at your patterns in life, the negative emotions don't ever get you what you want. You might feel good for the moment, but long term, it's not going to be fun. I always say you can win the battle, but are you trying to win the war? Right? So you might be right today, and you might win that argument, and you might feel great because you won that battle. But then the reality is maybe you've created a wedge or a gap in that relationship, or maybe you've created some bad choices based on the fast reaction to your emotion. So be careful about that, because ultimately you're not going to win that war, which means you're going to end that relationship. And is that what you want? All right. So I'm going to end with my mindset quote that I always talk about. Each week is a different topic, of course. And this one's from Dale Carnegie, and it really kind of sums up what we're talking about today with emotion. It says, when dealing with people, remember that you're not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. So I'm going to say that one more time. When dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. I think that's really important. I'll tell you right now, my disc is a DI, so I'm very dominant and I have influence, right? So both of those are my dominant characteristics. The S and the C, not so much for me. It's about dealing with people, right? It's not a transaction. It's not just to get to point A to point B. It's not using someone to get to the next level of success or hitting your goal, because people don't come from logic. And so many times I see situations and I'm coming at them as like in a logical way, and they're completely not listening to anything I'm saying. And the thing is, I've got to change. The only person you can change is yourself. And look in the mirror, right? So I always say that every morning to myself. What could you do, Drew, to change the world? What could you do to change the relationship that you're in for the better? And it starts with the mindset around emotion. It really does. Because we've got to change our emotion and how we react to people, because they sometimes can't recognize and see that. So logic makes them think, but emotions make them act. So if you're wanting somebody to do something, or you wanting them to buy into sell a house with you, or buying into the fact that you want to go to this restaurant, something as simple as that, it all is centered around emotion, which is energy. All right? So just kind of go into this week, have an abundant week, right? We're in a growth mindset because we've been talking about this for 26 weeks about the mindset around having abundance in your life. And make sure you keep your emotions between the lines, because that's the number one thing that I see when people shift into a more positive mindset. It's based on how they react to their emotions. All right, well, have a great day, and I will see you guys next week, Monday, right here, Mindset Monday on Facebook Live. And I missed you guys. Last week I had to do a kind of recording video because I was in California, so I'm excited to be back with you guys, and I'll see you next Monday. All right, bye, guys.